Drones in nature, are they an amazing way to get epic nature shots or just plain obnoxious? Or maybe both? Hey y'all, welcome back to another video. Today we're talking all about drones on trails. I did bring my drone on my thru-hike with the Pacific Crest Trail. Did it work out? Well, you'll find out by the end of the video. If you are wondering if I will recommend that you take a drone into nature, no. There's lots of reasons why, and I'll itemize them in this video. But for most people, it doesn't make sense. It's not worth the trade-off of annoying other people. And there's really very few places that you can actually lawfully fly them in nature. So let's dive into it. I'm going to share my 7 rules if you do decide to take your drone into nature. These are my 7 rules for not being an a-hole. There are a lot of ways to not only break the law, but to just be rude and disrespectful. So let's go through my 7 rules for flying a drone in public now, or in nature. Now, this is a really controversial subject. People have a lot of opinions on this, from people who don't care to follow the rules, are disrespectful, and think it's absolutely fine, to people who think drones have absolutely no place on trails. I probably lie somewhere in the middle, but drop your feelings in the comments and let's dive into mine. Okay, rule number 1 is knowing the laws and regulations for where you want to fly. There are some great apps, lots of websites where you can get more information on this, look at the map, see the airspace that you're in, and find those regulations. But when it comes to flying a drone in nature, there are a few non-negotiables. National parks, drones are always completely prohibited. Completely. I know that there's a single national park that I know of that allows any filming with a drone without going through a lot of red tape and paperwork to apply for permits. When I was making that film, it's a little docu-comedy. If you want to check it out, it's available if you have Prime. I looked into filming in national parks, and you can do it technically, but the permits are meant for huge film productions for the most part. It's difficult to get a permit, just for me, for social media, if not impossible, in a national park. So national parks, off limits. Most national monuments, designated wildernesses, they are also off limits for the most part. Always check the rules, but drones are almost always banned in those as well. BLM land, the Bureau of Land Management land, there's a lot of it in the West, not as much in the Midwest or East Coast, but in the West, BLM land. Now, it is usually allowed on BLM land, but specific areas may have specific regulations that go in a different direction than other BLM lands. So always double check. These rules and regulations change all of the time. So please always double check them before you fly your drone. Do not use the excuse that a guy on YouTube told you it was okay. The thing is, though, following the law is just the start. Being considerate is a whole nother ballgame. So let's dive into that.
Hello! Hey, if you are sitting there thinking, oh, I want to travel more, I want to go on more adventures, come with me. I host trips around the world. We've been hiking in Patagonia, we went looking for the Northern Lights in Iceland, trekking in Nepal, camping in Banff, Canada, in the Canadian Rockies. We do it all, and we have a real good time. Everyone's welcome, and all the details for any current trips, just click that little bubble up in the top corner, or go to my website, jjb.life/travel. And we almost always make at least one group cringy TikTok. So come hang out with us. We're a real good time.
Okay, rule number 2, never disrupt somebody else's natural experience. Drones make noise. They scare wildlife. They disrupt wildlife that hunters may have been tracking for hours. Nobody wants their drone shot out of the sky by a hunter. And it just generally ruins the solitude for other hikers. Nobody wants a drone hovering above their campsite or zooming around them when they've gone to probably great lengths to get themselves out into nature. They are trying to escape technology, or at least be in control of when they are exposed and around it. I'm going to admit that is the reason that I ended up sending my drone home from my PCT Thru-Hike. I was able to fly it a few times. I put it in my bounce box because I had to work on the trail. I had a bounce box that I would mail to the next town that I was stopping in. So I would have my computer and some things like that I needed to work. And I had the drone in there from the beginning, and I didn't carry it much, but I always had it in the bounce box. And there were 2 sections where I thought it might be prettier than usual, and drones happened to be allowed in those sections. So I carried it in a couple sections and got some great shots that you'll see throughout my content, but I ended up sending it home, and here's why. The last time that I flew it, I took all the precautions. I followed all of the rules I thought that I'm giving you in this list. But at the end, a couple hikers came up and we were chatting. They certainly weren't annoyed, or they didn't say anything. But I didn't know they were there. And I had made sure that there were not hikers around me, and they were there. I was chatting with them just as hikers do. And I brought it up and apologized in advance, and they had heard it. They were lovely about it, but I felt terrible. And despite following all these rules and thinking that I was being super respectful, even still, I interrupted and affected their natural experience. So I ended up sending it home. It just wasn't worth it for me. Nobody wants to be that guy, especially me. I mean, would you want a drone zooming around you while you're trying to enjoy nature? I don't know. If I'm wrong, tell me in the comments. But I'm not. And rule number 3 is in the same vein, only fly where you're welcome. So even if you're with people who you know and you think that they're okay with it, I can't stress enough the importance of asking any nearby hikers, whether you know them or not. If you don't know them, well, I don't know. I guess this is a personal call. I wouldn't even ask, because I would be worried that they would say, oh, no, it's fine, of course, when they really don't mean it, just to be polite. So honestly, I wouldn't even ask. If it was my friends, I would be fine with that. But even if you think that the people around are fine, confirm. Rule number 4 is understanding the actual limits of your drone in terms of how practical it is. Most of them are heavy. I'll show you the drone I used, which is ridiculously light for a drone, but even still, when you're trying to keep things ultralight on a long through hike, it doesn't make a lot of sense to carry the extra weight of a drone when there are so few places that you can legally fly it. In addition to being heavy, they have to stay charged, and they use a lot of battery power for a very short amount of flight time. So it is not efficient in terms of battery power that you're taking on trail for a through hike to carry a drone most of the time. It is more suited for, weekend trips or day hiking trips if you do decide to take your drone. Okay, rule number 4 is before you ever leave your house is understanding the limits of your drone and how impractical it may or may not be to take it with you. On a through hike, it's very impractical for the reasons I've mentioned and more that I'll lay out in the rest of this video. But often for even short hikes or weekend trips, it doesn't make sense. Drones are heavy. Even if you have the lightest drone, it's a lot of weight to carry, considering that you can only fly it for a fairly limited amount of time on a battery charge. And those batteries are big and they're heavy. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you are going to carry it, make sure you understand what the extra weight feels like, how much battery power you need. If you're going to recharge, do you have a plan? Just make sure you've really thought through those to see how practical bringing a drone on your trip may or may not be. Okay, rule number 5 is ensuring that you have your commercial drone pilot's license if you need it. If you are using your drone footage for anything that's monetized in any way, if you are using that footage commercially, you are required to have a commercial drone operator's license. I have mine because I obviously use mine for monetized content. It's not super difficult to get, but it does require some effort and some studying. It's definitely not something that you can just wing. But make sure that you know when you need that and that you have it if you're using footage commercially. Because the FAA, especially during COVID, when the FAA were sent home, you might have heard some of the drama. One of the tasks they gave them was to find people who were not doing this, who were not following the rules and using drone footage commercially without a license. I think they were really cool about it. Most of the stories I heard were they simply contacted the pilot and said, hey, we noticed you're using this footage commercially. We do not see a license for you. You have 90 days, blah, blah, blah. So I think they were reasonable, but you may get caught and the ramifications are grave. So know when you need a commercial drone pilot's license and get it if that's how you're going to use the footage. All right, rule number 6, fly with a purpose, not just for fun. Batteries on drones, I think my Mini Pro, my DJI Mini 4 Pro has a stated battery life up to like 46 minutes, I think. Does it actually get that? No. But needless to say, don't just put the drone up and fly around for the heck of it. Plan your shots. If you need to get the drone up to scout the landscape, awesome. Bring it back down. Figure out what you want to shoot, what angle you're shooting at, how you're shooting it. If you're using one of the automated features, how you're using that. Plan it in advance so that when you take off, that your flight time is as efficient as possible and you're taking as little risk as possible at disturbing wildlife or somebody else's experience outdoors. Be purposeful. Okay, and rule number 7, this goes for everything in the outdoors, but leave no trace. As always, at the very least, if you're going out to use your drone, be sure that you're not leaving a mess if you take gear or equipment with you. Make sure you pack out everything that you bring with you. This is the drone that I used on the PCT. This is the DJI Mini 4 Pro. This is the controller I carried. It is a little heavier than the other controller, which uses your phone. I chose to carry this nonetheless. And then this bag from DJI, it's a little fleece-lined bag. And that is what I carried the drone in. So you can see it's not, this is a lot. This is a lot to carry. I only ended up carrying it for 2 different short sections, which happened to allow, I thought they might be pretty, and they allowed drones. But the places that I wanted to fly the drone the most, it's not legal. So, it was a lot to carry for the amount that I was able to utilize it. Nonetheless, I'm glad I took it. I got some great shots that have been really useful. So I got what I needed, and I am glad that I had it a little bit, but it's just not practical for most situations. I would never suggest a thru-hiker take one of these. It's questionable whether it was worth it for me or not, and this is what I do for work. I had a very good reason for the footage and useful revenue generating reason for wanting the footage, and even still, I'm not sure I could have used it much more than I did. So we'll dive deeper into this drone later. I'm not a drone channel, but I will make a video specifically about why I chose this for my PCT Thru-Hike, why I would take it again in nature in general. All right, so if you do choose to bring your drone, those are my 7 rules for not being an absolute intolerable jerk in nature. For 99% of hikers, if you're going to ask, should I take my drone with me? My answer is going to be no. But if you do choose to, please, please, please follow these rules. Don't ruin it for the rest of us, and you'll be a better trail companion for everyone. So what do you think? Should drones ever be allowed on trails in nature? Let me know in the comments. Be sure to check out the description for links to all the gear that I used on the PCT. See you next time. Want to watch another video? Click here. Want to learn more about my upcoming trips? Click here. Want to subscribe and like all my videos and turn those bell notifications on?